Welcome to And It's Live, the podcast which dives deep into football's most iconic seasons, stories, and what ifs. If you love football, history, tactics, and nostalgia, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop us a like on YouTube so you don't miss an episode.
Effenberg flips it in. To get the header across.
Linker, this might come here for Palace.
Not offside, he's made up the ground. Neville might not get the header. Whether that stamp can't make
that to be a substitute too, wouldn't it?
That's poetic.
Munich in front. It is an absolutely Bayern Munich who've struck late in the day this time.
Let's start with United and Bayern Munich, because of course that was the final only a couple of years before this showdown in the quarterfinals. The game at Old Trafford then, David. Tense, edgy, nip and tuck, and then 𝐵𝐻𝐶 scores a very Bayern Munich goal, really, is the only way I can kind of describe it, with only a few minutes left, and away goal still very much in vogue at the time, and I didn't see any way back for United. There was going to be no 𝐃𝐨𝐽 moments, I don't think, in that second leg, even though, it was still another 90 minutes to be played. That was a killer.
Yeah, it was, and it felt it was an incredibly tense game from about the 10th minute, because both sides obviously have a lot of respect for each other, understandably so. I don't know if maybe because the commentary refers constantly back to 99, I don't think it's as big a factor in their minds of the Bayern players as maybe United would have liked it to have been. The scar tissue, if it's there, it seems to have been covered over quite successfully. But as the game goes on, and this, we've noticed this before, haven't we, about Old Trafford and knockout ties? This isn't the first time we've noticed that if they've not gone off like a train, it gets quiet and edgy, and it gets very quiet and edgy. There's not a lot of goal-mouth action. Both sides seem to be settling in for a 0-0. And when that goal goes in, it pans to the crowd, Martin, and the absolutely horror-struck look on their faces, because they sort of knew. But again, this isn't the first time I think we've mentioned this on the main event. In this era where we all remember United as being free-flowing and swashbuckling, on the nights that they weren't, their crowd tended to sort of go within themselves and start to just make the atmosphere very tense. And Bayern, of course, are quite happy with a 0-0, but they go forward and pinch it. And I was like you, I thought, no, they're not coming back from that. The away goal was just so crucial.
Those Old Trafford games are usually second legs from memory. Monaco, Dortmund, Real Madrid the season before. This one being the first leg was kind of weird. I will slightly disagree with you, David. I think 99 and 2000 is very much at front and centre of Bayern Munich's mind this season. They are on a revenge mission.
In a positive way, yes, you're right.
But what they're not letting it do is become neurosis. They are using that as fuel, as big, proper clubs do. The celebrations at the end of that first leg, Adam, were not the normal celebrations at the end of a still finely balanced, halfway stage of a tie. The match is less finely balanced in Munich. Bayern are fairly quickly 2-0 ahead, but United do get back into it. Who scores that goal? Giggs just after half-time. And what I'd forgotten about is, it's 3-1 in aggregate. It's 3-1 in aggregate. Away goals have been cancelled out. Scholes has two brilliant efforts, I think. Definitely one from long range that were very close. Cole should have had a penalty. I'm pretty sure he was tugged back. This could have turned into that dramatic reenactment of the Nou Camp, but there's something about this Munich team that was not happening. Roy Keane gets bounced by Stefan Effenberg. There's just something different about this team, who are hell bent on winning this Champions League.
Yeah, I think it was like you said, they're using that as fuel. I think they were lethal when they needed to be, I think, in this game. In this tie, they missed a few chances. I mean, they get that goal in the last 5 minutes or so at Old Trafford, which is fair enough, like you said. But then within 5 minutes of the first 5 minutes of the return leg, they're 2 up. I liked away goals. I was a big fan of away goals. I didn't want them to go away, but then at the same time, I don't really feel like we've missed them either. If that makes sense.
We've got something different now, which in and of itself it has its merits as well. Yeah,
it's one of those strange ones. I think there's pros and cons to both of it. But they could have been 3-0 up. I watched most of this game. They could have been 3-0 up. 𝐿𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 hits a shot off the bar. Wes Brown, 17 minutes in, I think it was, that header back to
awful
to Barthez, and 𝐿𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 didn't really do very well. But then again, Mehmet's goal, that man pops up 5 minutes before half time to bury it, I think, as far as anybody's concerned. But yeah, that goal that they get back for enough, you might think they could come back into it, and they've got that little bit of jeopardy because of the away goals there. If they get one or two, then they're Bayern are fighting for it. But yeah, I think lessons learned for them here. A much better team, I think, now, Bayern, than they were then. 𝐦𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 and Stefan Effenberg as your midfield too. I mean, that's channeling every diehard baddie that's ever been.
I hated Jeremies, but he was superb.
There is a sense the Bayern players are a wee bit hungrier for this, and there's a crispness and a sharpness to them that isn't quite there with United, and that's why I was really interested to, for you to the point you made, Martin, about Manchester United's league season sort of petering out a bit in their last 10 games or so, because they've done it, and
they won 3 out of the last 8 league games. They lost 4. You know what I mean?
There you go. And they still won by 10 points. I think that it just, Adam mentioned it there, you can't bank sharpness, can you? You can't bank intensity. You either have it or you don't. And this Bayern team, for the reasons that you mentioned, because they're a proper big club, and when they lose a match, they see it as a slight, and they want to go back and make the other team suffer the way they've suffered, rather than going into their shells. Over these 2 matches, there really is a clear difference. And as we've mentioned before, Ferguson, this is the game, this is the last time he'll go with a 4-4-2 trad United, Veron, etc. All of that is going to happen, and United are going to go a totally different way, because he's fed up. We mentioned earlier about how impatient he is just to get to this stage of the tournament, and he's fed up getting there and going out.
I wonder, and this is just speculation, Adam, but if Ruud van Nistelrooy doesn't snap himself in that summer of 2000, he arrives at United as planned, whether that gives him an extra bit of something that wakes things up a wee bit, sharpens things up a wee bit in Europe. I don't know. Go back to your point a minute ago. See if that match situation is the same. 3-1 to Bayern on aggregate with 40 minutes to go at 1999. United do find 2 goals. They draw that 3-3. Or whatever, the ties 3-3 in aggregate, and United go through in away goals. They will find a way that I just don't think they can discover. They can't drag it up. It's just kind of it's lost, and probably need another. We'll talk next week about Ferguson's proposed retirement, and maybe that given a new impetus in terms of the Champions League. But it's just not there. But I wonder if Van Nistelrooy gives them. If you enjoyed the show and want to help us grow, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. On YouTube, search for And It's Live Podcast. We've got new deep dives, drafts and breakdowns dropping every other day.